Hello and welcome again. This is Ken of Kakuchopurei and we are at LEAP 2023 at the Bangi preliminaries. With me is YB Syahredzan Johan, the MP of Bangi.
Hello.
What do you see when it comes to esports and also the future of esports when it comes to how it can help the youngsters and also the grassroots?
I think what we need to do now is basically to identify the talents that we have, because I'm very sure that we have a lot of talent here in Malaysia and of course specifically in Bangi. But in order to bring out that talent, to identify them, this is where programs such as LEAP would really help, because it gives these people a platform to come forward and for us to identify them, and then maybe give them a platform in the future for them to go on to do better things.
As a relatively young member of parliament, do you feel video games or esports is a good way for you to reach out and connect with your constituents? And how do you see this can benefit not just you, but your other fellow MPs?
Yeah. Well, personally for myself, I've been a gamer since I was small. So reaching out through the medium of video games is something that feels very natural to me. So even like today when I played a round or two of Street Fighter, I feel a connection with the people that I play against, and this is true even whether you do it on couch co-op or be done together on in the same physical place or online. So I think it gives us the opportunity to connect to a segment of the population which might not necessarily be a segment that we have much interaction with previously. For example, you might have a gotong royong in a particular area, but that gotong royong might not be populated by younger people. So by having this sort of programs and events, it allows us to connect to, like I said, a segment of society which we might not normally be able to reach out to. And at the same time, I think as Member of Parliament, the most important thing is for us to be able to speak to as many people as possible in order to represent their voices in Parliament. And if you only speak to a certain segment of your constituent, your constituency, and you don't speak to others who who are also important stakeholders in that particular area, then you are missing out on a whole chunk of the population, and especially so in a place like Bangi, where the parliamentary constituency has a lot of young people, where things like video games are prevalent amongst their hobbies, or even part of their identity, for example. So I think that's why it's important for us to be able to reach out through as many programs and as many diverse platforms as possible.
In your speech earlier, you mentioned about how it took a while before your parent realized, okay, maybe I'll introduce them to video games or accept video games. So recently, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Senayo, did mooted a potential plan of introducing esports into the curriculums in school. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good move. I think we need to move on from this whole stigmatization of video games, saying that it creates violent people and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of good that can come out from video games. So incorporating it into a module where people can actually learn things like competitive spirit, how to train so that you can get better, sportsmanship and so on and so forth. I think these are values which we can actually distill out of playing video games, out of esports, and if we are able to use that as a module, as a way to actually teach our children, our young people about these values, then I think it's a great opportunity, and I look forward to it.
The normal video games are normally those who participate in video games are of the younger generation. They're still in the carers, their parents and whatnot. So perhaps the education to their parents is quite important as well. So what are your thoughts on what's required to get parents of children now who are interested in video games to have a better understanding about the scene?
I think we must also not forget, I think when we talk about younger people and so on and so forth, I think we must also remember there's a lot of people who are already my age, 40, late 30s, who are themselves parents, right? And they have gone through the so-called video game boom of the 90s and the early 2000s. So they would actually understand video games better. So you have this opportunity of a generation which is not automatically averse to video games, to computer games, where you can actually reach out to them and they will immediately understand that actually this is something that can be beneficial for their children. So I think that in itself makes it easier than perhaps to try and convince a generation before that, where video games, like you said, is seen as something young or even seen as something negative. So I think with this opportunity that we have, and if you're talking about people or children who are in school, I think you're talking about a generation like late 30s, 40s and all that. So we have this opportunity to actually introduce or reintroduce them to video games and allow them to allow their kids to go through a process where they can actually learn from esports and video games.
Okay, so my final question is, when we muted the idea of Leap, we spoke to YB Nick first. And then he recommended, hey, speak to Shah, because he feels that it might be a good comparison or a good mix between this one. So what are your hopes from of Leap moving forward, and also to your fellow MPs? How do you feel that programs such as this can benefit them, or how do you think it might actually benefit them more for their constituents?
I think especially to the younger MPs, quote unquote, younger MPs who are interested in trying to reach out to their constituents through the medium of video games and esports. I think this is a good opportunity because Leap, this is the first season, of course. You have aspirations to actually take it bigger, not just Klang Valley, to take it to outside of Klang Valley, to other states and all that. So I would say to MPs who think that this is a good opportunity, speak to the organizers, and maybe season 2 we can have a bigger sort of pool of parliamentary areas, and we can truly make it nationwide.
Okay, my really final question is, how confident are you in actually defeating most of these MPs in the games that you are pretty good at?
Okay, if it's Street Fighter 6, I'm pretty confident. The rest...
Open challenge, yeah?
Yeah. So any of you MPs who think you can come toe to toe with me on Street Fighter 6, just Street Fighter 6, no other games, please bring it.